Hello, just wanted to come to you live to share with you a little bit about what is transpiring in this buyer's market of real estate. Because let me just tell you, it is tough out there. It is tough. A lot of us real estate agents are. It's a challenging market out there right now. You throw in the lack of inventory, inflation. There's just a lot of variables, a lot of challenges that are taking place. And I was on prayer call this morning. I do my morning accountability and real estate coaching call across the country. Teams I'm coaching in Michigan, New York, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina. It's very, very hard right now. And I don't care what's going on. It is challenging on the buy side in the real estate market. There's no homes. There's the lack of inventory is drastically changing the map of how we do real estate. And for those that have gone through this, feel free to throw in your comments today. For those that want to share your story, write it in, tell me a little bit about it. I'm going to give you some tips today on some of the things that we are doing to try to win some of these buyers. And hopefully you could share this with the other real estate agents. If you're going through a challenge, if you're thinking about it, what we're doing and how we're overcoming this to some capacity. It's hard to overcome when you're dealing with cash. 60 Minutes actually just did a special on it this past Sunday. If you want that link, I'll send it to you. But these large industries are taking over and it's hard to fight against cash. And if you're an FHA buyer right now, I do apologize, but it is very, 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 very hard for you to make any offers between a price point between really 150 to 400,000 right now in this market. So Charlotte specifically, I'm going to talk about just because that's where I live, but we're seeing across the board. We have a team in New York that it's tough. It also depends on what you're dealing with due diligence, what you're dealing with earnest money, how much money you're putting down, how much over asking price you're going through. So I have some key ingredients, about probably 7, 10 of them that I'm going to share with you and what we're doing. We're also doing another live event on April 19th at 11 Lakes Brewery here right in Cornelius on winning with buyers, talking about the appraisal gap. I got my buddy Chad who's going to be helping me coach on that. But we're going to have a happy hour, free food and some drinks just to get ourselves to be able to work together on this because it is challenging out there, everybody. So I'm going to kind of go through my list of some of the things that you can do to help yourself with winning offers. Okay. So what we're seeing right now is listings. You put your house on the market, you will have multiple offers. It's pretty much a done deal. I'm not going to get into that whole side of things. The objection that we face and the challenges that our sellers face is where I'm going to move to next. Some of them are moving out of town. Some of them are just renting. Some of them are living with family members. Some of them are doing new construction. It all varies. But if you're trying to sell your house to take advantage of the seller's market, then the challenge becomes in what do I do with my house now on the buy side? And I can't find anything. Anything comes off the market. Contingencies are a little bit more challenging. Just putting offers are very, very hard to do. We recently did one. Greg, one of the guys on our team, he put in an offer and literally it was 15,000 over asking price. We put $50,000 in due diligence. Still lost out on it. We had 18 offers we were going up against. So it's just a very, very challenging time. And so I can't tell you this is going to promise you to win, but at least hopefully maybe it puts you in contention and puts you in a position that you're going to be able to possibly win moving forward with it. So a couple of things that we do. One is we automatically call the listing agent, have conversations with the listing agent. And the question that we ask is, what's the most important thing to your seller? It does, price is one thing. Don't get me wrong. That is obviously a main ingredient, but excuse me. Sometimes it's due diligence. Sometimes it's we want a lease back. Sometimes it's, whatever the situation is, but you want to at least first figure out what it is. Okay. You want to figure out what you're dealing with and what's most important to the seller. Then once you get that, you want to be able to make sure that you have a clean offer. Uh, Asking for the seller to pay closing costs anymore, that's not going to take shape. Asking for a home warranty, that typically doesn't happen anymore. So you're really only working with price, due diligence, and closing time. Those are really main things. In North Carolina, we have due diligence, so you have to work on that too to see what's your time period. If you're in a state that's dealing with refundable versus non-refundable, in here in non-refundable money, we use that quite a bit to be able to increase the liability of a buyer to help out with win offers. And I'll explain that here very shortly. But you want to make sure your offer is clean. You want to make sure that you have everything, that all your ducks in a row, making sure that it's as clean as you possibly could be, meaning, the personal property. Don't ask for a laundry list of things. Yes, the refrigerator, washer, dryer, but outside of that, you're not asking for, the drapes. You're not asking for certain bar stools. You're not asking for like this TV. If the seller wants during inspection time period, you can go through and have those conversations. But for the most part, you're not asking that. So you want to find out what's important for the seller. Then when you're putting the offer together, I mean, just plan on going in. Like sometimes you say, like, when are you accepting highest and best? Like you pretty much know going into it, you're going to have to submit your highest and best. There is no like, let me start with here, see what happens. You're pretty much dealing with, in our even case in coming soons, like you got to call the agent. Don't think that somebody else did not put an offer in the coming soon. Like that's even getting to the point where they're trying to get in offers before coming soon to try to win before we even get to that point of going live, to not have to deal with. I mean, you're going to deal with multiple offers, but maybe instead of 18 of them, you only have to deal with 3 of them, and that could help your chances. So understanding the time period and understanding where that goes into play. But purchase price, a lot of people say to us, or like, what should I offer? Well, you're going to be at the asking price pretty much at the what they're asking. Then it decides on how much more do you want to go above it. And then you got to deal with appraisals, and that's a whole nother animal I'll deal with in a second. But when it comes time for dealing with the price, it just basically, the question that we ask buyers are, how badly do you want it? How badly do you want this home? Like, because somebody's going to come in drastically over, somebody's going to come in with a price that you really can't believe. So we got to be able to build a foundation, but at least I need to know what price you're going over. Is it 5%? Is it 10%? I mean, that's typically what you're looking at going over price. And then we got to deal with the appraisal. So as far as price, I mean, you could look at the comps. You could say like, well, to start the sale, it's well overpriced. Well, they're just welcome to real estate right now and where the homes are going. And then it becomes now time to figure out what's at what extreme are you going to. Then here in North Carolina, we deal with due diligence. And then how much due diligence do you put down? So typically right now we're putting $50,000, or at least our last couple offers was $50,000. So why did I say FHA is pretty much out of the mix? Is because most reason why people who do FHAs, they only have 3.5% down. When you're buying when you're putting $50,000 down, that's like literally 10 to 15% down on a property, and they don't have it. And that's one of the ways you win, is by increasing your due diligence. Can you go at $5,000 and $10,000 for due diligence? You absolutely can. The challenge is that when you're dealing with cash and quick closing, like sometimes you can't even compete, because even that 50,000 in due diligence is not strong enough. So you have to have a combination of a strong price with substantial due diligence down to make your offer more exciting just based off of numbers. Earnest money, yes, earnest money is great, but it's refundable. So it does, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't really matter. But if you have an early due diligence date and a good earnest money, that could help out the situation. So double check on earnest money, double check on due diligence, and look at your dates. Typically, shorter the better for due diligence dates here in North Carolina. So you want to make sure that your inspection process, the biggest problem is dealing with appraisals. is sometimes appraisals take longer. So you got to talk to your lender to say like, hey, how long are appraisals coming into play? So that's something that you need to take a look at to be able to see what that's all about. Um, so so that's the meat and potatoes of that. Like I told you, you're not doing the seller concessions. You're not doing a home inspection or a home warranty. Now, getting in with let's just dive into appraisals. Appraisals. Okay, that's a challenge because when you go so high up, it tends it's just to getting it appraised is very hard. So some of the things, and one of the things that Chad was working with, and ask your lender, guys. One is to find out if they have a appraisal gap coverage. Appraisal gap coverage only works if you're able to put 15 to 20% down. And what happens is it appraisal gap coverage or appraisal waiver that you're hearing is if the purchase price is 400,000 and you go to 425 and it only appraises at 400, you're saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that we're going to bring the $25,000 difference to the table because people are just outbidding. And then the appraisal comes in and they think that they're going to the seller's going to go down, and they're not. They're going to say, no, I want 425. And so you got the appraisal waiver in there. Well, even if it does come in at 25,000, and let's just say that the buyer only put down $5,000 in due diligence. Well, sometimes the buyer might be like, you know what? I don't even have enough money. I can't even do that. They back away. They lose that 5,000. But what we're seeing is this appraisal gap coverage is helping you out because if you don't have that money, but you're able to put down that 10 to 15%, they're able to put it in the loan. Well, my client says to me, well, Brock, that means I'm still overpaying. Yes, that is absolutely correct. You are still overpaying, but at least it goes into the loan now. It's not coming out of your pocket. So it's very important to understand that and share that with your clients that yes, you're still overpaying, but you can put it in the loan. Now, this program only works with conventional, and you have to put at least 15 to 20% down because you still have to have a minimum of 5% down on conventional. But it allows you to have some strength going into offers with an appraisal waiver and not having to deal with negotiations of dealing with, the appraisal came in. At this point, you'd be like, it doesn't matter, we're covered, we have appraisal gap. Now, the appraisal gap typically only works with a minimum of 10%. If you're putting down 20%, you have a 15% leeway between the purchase price and what the appraisal can be at. So for example, at a $400,000 home, and you're putting 15% down, you're allowed to have a 10% waiver, meaning you can go down, you can have a gap of $40,000 and still be covered underneath this policy. So why I share this with you is a lot of agents don't know about it, let alone some of the lenders don't know about it. But here's the big thing is you need to make sure that the listing agent understands how to explain that to the seller, because if the listing agent doesn't understand it and it sounds complicated, even though your offer sounds really strong, they might be like, you know what? I don't even get that. You know what? Let's just put it off the board. I don't even want to deal with that one. So you got to make sure that you explain that to the listing agent when you're providing an appraisal gap coverage, because it's very, very important. The other big ticket item that we hear a lot of is love letters. So in North Carolina, and I'm not too sure if it's an NAR rule, and somebody could throw me up on chat and tell me if it's NAR rule or not, but love letters, meaning that the family member sends something over to the seller saying, my family would really love here, especially if you're dealing with an investor compared to a family. People are more prone to go with a family member. But you got to make sure that you understand as a real estate agent, you are not allowed to exchange love letters. Okay. Now, doesn't mean they can't be done. It just means that buyer needs to send it directly to that seller and they have to engage with it. I just can't take it. Can't tell you to write one. I can't hey, let's sit down and write a love letter today and send it over with their offer. You can't do that. But if you decide that you happen to write one and send it over to the seller, I didn't have nothing to do with that. So love letters are something that you can take a look at, but just be cautious on that for real estate agents. Home inspection waivers, hey, I'm not going to ask for anything on the home inspection. Now, here's the important thing. You still can get a home inspection. Okay. Just want you to know you still can get a home inspection. So that way you know what's wrong with the property, but you're just not asking the seller to fix anything. So we have home inspection waivers. Some of the other things we're doing is we are paying, yes, that's right, paying for the seller's closing costs. In North Carolina, we have excise tax, you have attorney fees, you got a mortgage release, all these different things, county taxes. You could pay for the seller closing costs instead of jacking up your price so high. Just say we'll pay $2,500 towards the seller closing costs. Next, what we do is we also work on, excuse me, what was the item that we do? Lease backs. So we did one recently where we said, okay, we will give you 1 month of a lease back, meaning you can stay at your property after we close for 1 month so you can move. We've done 5 days because maybe they don't want a month. We've done a 5 days move out, and we do a move out concierge service where, hey, you got your 5 days, nothing to worry about. We'll come in with the cleaning company after for my client. If there's anything you need, but we're giving you 5 days to move out of your house instead of trying to, move a couple days beforehand, get the pods, trying to coordinate your next house you're going to, work through your specific time period. So this gives you that grace period to be able to do back. So we do a 5-day grace period at no charge for the seller to be able to move out. We do that. Let's see. If they don't close on time or something comes into play, it's no big deal. We don't have any penalties for them. So we did home inspection. We talked about waiving that, buying the property as is. We talked about the appraisal waiver. We talked about the appraisal gap coverage. We talked about the lease back potentially, that if people need that for them to to have that time period to move. Let's see. We talked about extended occupancy. We try not to have any contingencies. We talked about due diligence money. We talked about the earnest money. So those are just some of the, timelines we talked about. Over asking price, paying for cash. So let me end it on this. So paying for cash. There are programs, and it all depends on where you are and what part of the country. In Charlotte, we're one of the most challenging markets, as well as the most attractive markets. So we have some cash programs here. Ribbon is called one of them. Ribbon, you can go to like ribbonhomes.com, Orchard, and Knock. We're actually getting ready to do a webinar here at 4:00 on Knock. But these are 3 cash offer programs that your buyer could be a part of. Yes, there's a fee attached to it, but it's far cheaper than it is some of these things that we're doing of going in at $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over asking price, compared to having some of these fees that might be up to 1%, 1.5% of the purchase price. Much, much cheaper. 400,000, rather pay $4,000 and have a cash offer and have an institution help support you to be able to make that purchase. So just keep that in mind, that you have those opportunities dealing with some investors. So then that way you can have a very, very strong offer going into it. Please make sure that the listing agent understands what that offer is all about. Make sure you walk them through, have any questions, look at things. So in conclusion, that's, that's what it comes down to. And then the last part of it is how you handle it after. One of the things that is a challenge is what you deal with after you lose the deal, because mindset, emotions are such a huge ingredient where they get frustrated. And buyers agents, let me just tell you, you cannot be frustrated. You can't, well, let me say, you can be frustrated, but you can't show your client you're frustrated, because they're going to be more frustrated because they did all the paperwork. They got the lending. They did this. They did their homework. They did their taxes. They got everything. They showed the property, or they went to look at the property. They looked at several of them. They get everything they did. And I don't know if it's better if they come really close and they lose it, or they're just so far away from it that they don't even have a chance, that they just come to the record. They recognize like, oh my gosh, I don't even think we'll ever have a chance to buy a home. And so you have to keep their spirits up. You have to keep them in a very, very positive mindset going into that. So Greg says, with the speed of offers in this market, it is advantageous for a buyer to submit an offer during the coming soon. So, yes, so Greg's question was in reference to, is it better to try to put in offers during the coming soon? We talked a little bit about that earlier today, was when you do that and it's really, really strong, and depending on the seller's mindset of being like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a little overwhelmed. We have 27 showings this weekend. I'd rather just take a look at this offer, then that way we don't even have to deal with it. We don't even have to do any showings and we could take this offer. So some sellers think that way. They will also, depending on how strong the offer is, you might be only competing against 2 or 3 offers instead of like 18 or 19 offers when it actually hits in the market. Because if they get it on a Saturday, more than likely what we're seeing is they will wait till Sunday or Monday before they make a decision. And you make sure you set the expectation with the buyers. Just don't submit the offer. You're going to have to call listing agent and ask them, like, hey, when do you think we're going to hear back? Like, when do you think this is going to take place where we're going to hear back our answers? And you need to tell that to your buyer, because if not, they will call you every 3 hours and they say, hey, did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? Hey, how about now? Did you hear now? And then we'll start back up the following morning. So set the expectations and ask the listing agent what that looks like, because that's so, so very important. So good question on that. Anybody else have any questions that you got on here? Just put them on this live chat here. But guys, I just wanted to share with you, a little food for thought, little tidbits, some coaching tips on what we're seeing in this market and what it looks like in the buyer side and how challenging it is when you only have ridiculous amounts of buyers. Interest rates are creating scarcity and creating concern. Inflation is going up, which is drawing in the lack of inventory, which is then causing a huge, huge demand in our real estate industry. So with that being said, if nobody has anything, please feel free. I know this is recorded, so then that way you can listen to it throughout time period, throughout the day, or whenever it's convenient for you. I appreciate it. If you can, just leave some comments, leave any questions. I'd love to be able to entertain and answer anything that you might have. So very thankful for those that listen in. And I want you to have a great day. Good luck out there. Stay strong. Don't, just keep your mindset in a good spot, because it is a very, very challenging market that we're dealing in now, especially here in Charlotte. So thanks so much, guys. Hope you have a great day, and looking forward to catching up with you guys next week. Thanks so much. Bye.